Holy sh... So, that just happened. Should I just end the video there? The Wolfsbane exotic released this week with the Heliostat exotic mission, and the exotic mission was, it was one of the missions of all time. I'm just gonna leave it at that. But we're not here to talk about the mission. We're here to talk about the exotic weapon that you get from beating the mission, and that is the Wolfsbane exotic axe sword thing. Initially, a lot of people just completely downplayed it instantly and said, terrible weapon, will never be used, has no creativity to it, blah blah blah. Well, turns out you were just a little bit off. So to start, at base, it's already at the top of the charts for just a DPS sword in the game, just off rip, comparing it to Lament. On its own, that's fine, but it becomes way, way better when you realize it has interactions with other things in the game. But to explain that, first let's talk about what the weapon actually does. The intrinsic trait on the weapon says light attacks generate sword energy and have the chance to spawn seeking Quicksilver nanites that heal the wielder upon attaching. So it's a heavy weapon that can heal you. Already a nice bonus. Then we go into the perks. We have Rampager's Handle. This specifically is just free DR. Gain moderately increased damage resist from being in combat for a moderate duration. So just think you're swording any high-level enemy, a yellow bar, and you're getting free DR for just hitting them with your sword. Then we get into the big boy perk, Nano Assault. Quicksilver nanites that attach to the wielder charge the blade, and then you press and hold reload when fully charged to overclock it with the attached nanites, enhancing the blade's offensive capabilities. Light attacks deal increased damage to targets, and fully charged heavy attacks create a flaming Quicksilver Soulnado nanite blah blah whatever. It's Pyrogale, okay? Additionally, of course, it comes with Catalyst as well. This week, when I'm currently recording, we only have Attrition Orbs, but this honestly isn't even bad because you will be making 8 billion orbs while you're DPSing anything with this axe with Attrition Orbs on. So it's good to get super energy, feed orbs to your teammates, and so on. But I think in future weeks, and by future weeks I mean next Tuesday reset, it'll have other better options in terms of damage anyway. Burning Ambition will be an interesting test to see how it works with this weapon, for example. Another interesting perk would be Relentless Strikes. It's not a damage perk directly anyway, but it will give you more ammo when you use your swings. More ammo means you're turning into more of the Swarm NATOs, which means more Giga damage overall. Speaking of Giga damage, how is that happening? So, with Wolfsbane, it is using Quicksilver nanites as part of its weapon. And the funny thing is, the nanites interact with other nanites in the game. You might see where I'm going with this. I'm talking about Siva nanites. Those are actually what Quicksilver nanites are, but I guess like on steroids or like Super Saiyan. So, when you can interact with Siva nanites, what does that mean? That's right, you get to use Outbreak Perfected. When combining Outbreak Perfected with Wolfsbane, two additional things will happen. Number one, your charge meter will get filled up much quicker than normal, which is fantastic because we want to get to the tornadoes as fast as possible. And number two, you will receive roughly 12% more damage to your axe while you're swinging at the enemy. Now I'm going to pause for a second because I just want to mention something because I know there's going to be that one guy in the comments who's going to hit me with the,
"Oh, so you're saying that Wolfsbane just sucks without Outbreak. Got it."
Well, Jimbo, I have a question for you. Have you heard of rocket launchers? You know, those things that have been in the game since, well, the existence of the franchise? Yeah. You know what else existed when the game launched? This exotic called Gallarhorn. You may have heard of it? And, oh, would you look at that? It also buffs the damage of rocket launchers. Huh. That's weird. Then there's this other gun I've never heard of, Divinity. I hear it puts a cage on people and it, like, increases other weapons' damage for your teammates. Anyway, yeah, that's not like a common thing in the game or anything. You know, who would do that, you fucking weirdo? Jokes aside, let's go over the build. So first, we're going to start with stats. The main two stats you want for this build, a DPS build, is going to be your weapon stat, because the axe is going to be your primary source of damage, and of course, backing that up is going to be your super stat for our Thunder Crash. The rest really don't matter, but in terms of my armor, in case people want to see what I have a Gunner helmet, I have Gunner gloves, Curse of the Falling Star as the exotic for the build, of course, Paragon boots, and lastly, Paragon class item. Also, while we're talking about Curse of the Falling Star, for the exotic armor piece, you can opt to use Curse, which I would recommend for raid bosses, or if you want, you could also be using either Syntheseps or Wormgod's Caress in this build, and also still do very good damage. I will say, though, that Curse, I think, outperforms both of these, especially because for Wormgod's Caress, keeping your Burning Fist stacks up while you're doing damage is a pain in the ass, and Curse is just a one-click button to do big damage, so I think for most people, that's the go-to. As for the kit, starting with aspects, I'm not even going to waste your time. It's Knockout and Consecration. Who of you is surprised by that choice? And for abilities, since we're using Consecration, we're also going to be using Frenzied Blade to give us 3 melee charges to maximize spamming Consecration when we are. And in the grenade slot, I opted to go with Shackle Grenade for suspending, but also for a Darkness debuff to activate Facet of Courage. You could also go with Glacier Grenade if you'd like, or you could just go with like Suppressor if you want to run a Weaken Grenade. Now for the class ability, I think there's 2 choices to make here. You could go either Rally Barricade, just for team DPS purposes with that, or if you want to go for something a little bit faster, you could go with Thruster, just to kind of activate your dodge to evade, but also pick up orbs with one of the armor mods we're going to have on, and then quickly go back to slamming your axe. So up to you which one you want. For fragments, there's 4 of them. The first 2 are the staples, which are going to be Facet of Protection, which is giving us damage resist when we're surrounded by combatants, and then Facet of Courage, which will give our light abilities more damage when we have a Darkness debuff on an enemy. So that's why I mentioned either having Shackle or the Glacier Grenade, right? So we go Grenade into Thunder Crash does more damage, and so on. The last 2 fragments are here specifically for stat purposes. Those are going to be Facet of Ruin for plus 10 weapons, and then Facet of Justice for plus 10 super. Though I guess you can get some mileage out of Ruin for getting more shatter damage from a Glacier Nade, or having a bigger range for your solar ignitions. Now the gameplay loop for this setup is going to be the following. First up, you want to charge your axe prior to going into a damage phase, so you want to have that bar completely full before you start any damage. You don't want to press reload yet, you just want to have the bar full. Once you do, make sure you also made a heavy brick on the ground somewhere that you can pick up and replenish your ammo immediately to 70 for the max. Then you can go into a damage phase. As the damage phase is starting, you want to go ahead and pop Prismatic. This will give you 5% more damage for your weapons, in this case for Wolfsbane. Then, while you're in Prismatic as well, you can throw your grenade, which will then trigger a Jolt for more damage, and also still apply a Darkness debuff, as it has an arc and a strand effect to it. The strand effect being Suspend, but it still works. The moment your Thunder Crash is done, that's when you want to activate that Quicksilver Nanite mode on your sword and go in for damage. Otherwise, if you activate it first, then do Thunder Crash, you're going to be wasting that 10-second timer on the charge mode, and you're just losing out on massive damage because of that. So, T-Crash first, activate the perk with your reload, and then go to town. Now with Wolfsbane, you want to start off with the heavy attack to get that Pyro Gale effect off for max damage, and after that, I think the ideal swing setup is going to be light, heavy, over and over as your timer is counting down, and then as it's getting to like 1 second left, you have one more chance to get in one more big heavy attack. So typically I try to go for 1 light and then 1 heavy to finish off the combo, and then it goes back to being the normal axe where you just want to go with light swings only and not waste your time with the heavy attack because it hits like a wet noodle when you're not in the Quicksilver mode. Another thing to keep in mind while you're damaging is every time that you do activate that Quicksilver mode, you're actually going to generate free ammo for your sword every time that you do this. And yes, this does include when it has literally 0 ammo and you activate the perk, it will give you ammo back. Finally, one last thing I did want to mention during damage, besides the obvious, Well of Radiance, Tether, etc. for your usual buffs and debuffs, you also can utilize Banner of War. Banner of War itself provides 10% bonus damage to melees and swords, so you can make the choice of either being a Banner of War Titan and self-buffing your own sword through that if you don't want to run Thunder Crash, or if you have a second Titan on your team that wants to do that, they can do it for you as well, just to buff your axe some more. Anyway, let's wrap this up with armor mods. If you want to try out this build on your own, by the way, I'll have a dim link down in the description below. As always, here are the armor mods. So my helmet, I have 3 copies of Super Fonts to give me 50 points of super in my stat for max Thunder Crash damage. In my gloves, the mods don't really matter, but I have 2 copies of Melee Font just to get to 100 points of melee, so I get the lowest cooldown for my Consecration Slams. Then I have 1 copy of Bolstering Detonation. In my chest, it's just resist, so I have Arc, Solar, and then Melee Resist, though depending on the activity, you might want to change these. But in most cases, if you're going to be using a sword on a boss, they're going to try to stomp you, and if they're going to stomp you, it's a melee, so melee damage resist actually makes sense. In my boots, it's 3 copies of Solar Weapon Surge to buff the damage of Wolfsbane, and then lastly, in my class item, 2 copies of Distribution. This is to lower the cooldown of my super so I get it back faster, and then 1 copy of Powerful Attraction for when I activate my class ability, I scoop up orbs around me to get my super faster again. And that is the build. It may not be the #1 meta weapon in the game, but in the right setup, in the right situation, holy crap, can it pump out some crazy damage. Not sure what it can accomplish on Warlocks and Hunters yet. I'll try that out and see if it's good enough or not, but in the meantime, if you did enjoy the build, or the video, please consider subscribing today. It does help the channel grow and is much appreciated. If you want to go the extra mile, you can leave a like and or comment below as well. If you don't know what to leave as a comment, you could leave Wolfsbane as the comment. Thanks for watching. Catch you next time.